welcome to another Top Reasons video. I'm Kristen Blease, an instructional strategist with Wayside Publishing. Thanks for joining me today to learn about the top reasons to use rubrics and proficiency-based grading. Before we get too far into our chat today though, let's define both rubrics and proficiency-based grading as they pertain to our conversation to make sure we're on the same page with what they mean. When we talk about rubrics, I'm talking about a scoring tool that lists the criteria important for the task, assignment, or assessment. And it also lists the levels of quality or proficiency we're looking for. And then proficiency-based grading is when you have clearly defined objectives that you are basing your grades on, and the only factors considered in determining your students' grades are directly tied to the student's learning. We'll go into both of these topics more in this video. And let's go ahead and get started with rubrics. Rubrics aren't just for grading assignments after they're done. They're also for informing the students about the expectations of the assignment before they get started, so that they know what to aim for in order to be successful. And that's our first reason to use them. Many students get frustrated with assignments and projects because they don't know what is expected, and then they spend their time and effort on things that aren't that important to the teacher who's grading it. But how are the students supposed to know that without a rubric? A good rubric is like a blueprint for the task. A rubric will clarify instructor expectations and enhance student performance. Rubrics inform students about what the teacher will be focusing on when grading and what the expected level of performance is. Students shouldn't be shocked when they see their grade and feedback on an assessment. If rubrics are used and given ahead of time, students really should have a pretty good idea of how they did, especially if they self-assess their work using the rubric before turning it in. Our second reason rubrics are important is that they not only help guide students while doing their project, they help them afterwards as well. They give students clear instruction on how to continue to improve their work to either hit or exceed the target. If a rubric is to be used to teach as well as to evaluate, it needs to be much more than just a checklist of what students need to include on a task. It's not about counting the number of times an irregular preterite tense verb is used in the paragraph they wrote. The criteria listed should reflect what counts in quality work, and it should be in student-friendly language so that they really understand what it's saying. Notice the criteria on this rubric. Take, for example, the first one, vocabulary in context. Now, that may not mean much to our students, but notice the question above it. What language or words do I use? Students know what that means. Also listed on a rubric are the degree of how well those criteria are met. These descriptions need to be free of unclear language so that students, as well as teachers, can easily determine the difference between levels. When students receive a rubric with their levels of performance in each criteria identified, along with a few select comments from the teacher, they know where they are and can easily see what they need to do next time to improve. And with proficiency-based grading, there should be a next time. Students should be able to redo an assignment or retake an assessment to show when more learning has occurred. That is what we want, right? For our students to continue to learn and improve. If they only have one chance to show their knowledge, and once that test is over, that chance is done, what motivation is there for them to continue to work on what they still need to learn if they won't get another chance to show you they've improved? This is what allowing retakes provide for our students. a chance to show that they have continued to learn and have now reached the goals that they hadn't achieved on the previous attempt. Reason 3 is about proficiency-based grading. We want the grades our students receive in our classes to accurately reflect what they know and can do in whichever language it is that we are teaching. And proficiency-based grading can help make sure that happens. What we put in our gradebook is like us shouting from a mountaintop what is important in our class. If we're willing to put a grade on it and record it, it must be worth something to us. So we need to make sure that our gradebooks are indeed only including what is truly important to help increase our students' proficiency. Instead of having categories like homework, tests, participation, etc. in your gradebook, consider adjusting it so the categories are based on the 3 modes of communication: interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational. Isn't communication what's important in a proficiency-based classroom? Well then, that's what the gradebook should be based on. Another thing to think about with proficiency-based grading is that in other aspects of our students' lives, like in sports, band, and theater, and many other activities, students are allowed time to practice. This is where they get to make mistakes and learn from them and then improve, so that when the performance counts, like in the big game, concert, or live performance, they are prepared to do their absolute best. We need to make our gradebooks reflect this philosophy as well. It requires a shift in thinking, from thinking that everything our students do needs to go into the gradebook, to that of thinking only grades that reflect performance, not practice, should be in the gradebook. This frees up students to take risks in their practice, or in other words, their homework and their formative tasks, so that they're encouraged to continually stretch themselves to be creative with the language to make meaning. They aren't afraid to take these risks if they know they won't be penalized for them while they're practicing. And one last thing to mention with revamping your grading is about extra credit. Bringing in Kleenex or dry erase markers or doing activities like going to an authentic restaurant or attending a museum exhibit doesn't make them any more proficient in the language. When we give them extra credit for these types of things, we're making it so that our students' grades do not reflect their actual ability to use the target language. This is not a part of proficiency-based grading. Our 4th and final top reason is that using both rubrics and proficiency-based grading is going to help us and our students really stay focused on what is important, which is learning, not points. Students have been trained throughout their educational career to think about learning in terms of points. They assume they're learning a lot when they get a lot of points. Many kids have learned to play the school game really well and know how to get points without really learning. We need to help them see that learning is more than the points that are attached to assignments and assessments. It's about what they can do with their knowledge they've gained. Using rubrics to clearly outline what is important for students to do to show their learning, and then recording that in a grade book that focuses on determining grades based on how well they performed using their knowledge, is helping our students see their learning more clearly. Let's quick recap our top 4 reasons to use rubrics and proficiency-based grading. First, rubrics help our students know their target so they can reach the goals we have for them. And when we use proficiency rubrics, students get information that will help them with that task while they're working on it, and also after they're done as a form of feedback on how to continue to improve. Third, setting up our gradebooks for proficiency-based grading will help ensure that our students' grades reflect what they know and, more importantly, can do in the target language, as well as encourage them to focus on the learning over just collecting points. If this video has sparked an interest for you in this topic, check out the 3-part blog series I wrote on proficiency-based grading on our blog at blog.waysidepublishing.com. And for more information on rubrics, I have found this Kennesaw State University site very thorough. You're going to find links there to ACTL's performance descriptors, as well as links to model rubrics from various institutions. I hope you are encouraged to use rubrics and to embrace this shift to proficiency-based grading. Thanks for spending a bit of your day with me, and let me know if you have any questions.